Thanks for coming.
Of course.
So let's just jump right in. Let's watch some videos together.
Okay.
And we'll just get a chance to talk about what's going on.
Great. Sounds good.
Awesome. So, how do you start the process of when you get the music and then you go into finding out the visuals for it? Because the work that you do is always so visually stunning. It seems something that's really just plowing through all of your work.
Thanks. Well, I think for this particular concept, I actually had this idea in my head for a little while of just a video I wanted to do with an artist with the world frozen and playing with the idea of not much gravity in the real world with them kind of moving through. And as soon as I heard this song, it just felt exactly right for it. So I just catered and tweaked the concept to match the Kid Laroi and Justin's energy. And you know, it's always an interesting challenge when you're dealing with an artist like Justin and an artist like Kid Laroi and putting them in the same world. So it was fun to have them kind of, you know, in their own places around this kind of world that I'm creating, and then finally have them come together.
Were they a part of the discussion of making the video and what it's going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this was definitely one of those where, you know, I'm pitching several different concepts, and then as soon as I presented like the general idea of this one, they're like, oh yeah, this is the direction we want to go, and then I'll flesh out the treatment from there.
And going back one step, the idea, I mean, it's really touching when you say about not being in the gravity and how it's holding on. Is that something that you've seen in a generation, or is that just something that you've seen in your own life or world around you, that you came up with that idea?
I mean, that idea definitely came up when I was just sitting in my house during the pandemic and everything just felt completely frozen. So it was just kind of that idea of wanting to be able to, like, yeah, and there was definitely a couple times where I'd like walk around in the middle of downtown Los Angeles and look at this completely empty city, and I'm like, whoa, this is trippy. So it was, I think it all kind of was through a couple of those experiences.
If we take it a step back, because you were telling me you grew up in the hoods and how you started to do your own videos.
Yep.
Can you go a little bit into that? Me being from Austria and the Alps and snow, it's hard to gather what that means growing up in the Bay Area and how that influenced your work.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from the Bay Area, and I grew up around in Berkeley, California, where it's just filled with different artists and musicians and just kind of this melting pot of cultures together. And I always skateboarded. I never really did music, but I spent so much time in the studio with all my friends making music. And I wanted to be a part of that in some way. And so I picked up a camera and basically started shooting music videos, not really realizing I was shooting music videos. And then I started to catch on to, you know, where I could go with it. The second that people were like, oh no, you're a director, man. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I started taking it very seriously from there.
How did images come into your life? Picking up a camera is something, you're taking the world and putting it into a frame, right? Mm-hmm. That's a special, and unique way of seeing the world, actually. Do you remember how that came about? That images touched you?
Well, I definitely think it was when I used to skateboard. I'd always be in front of the camera, and I'd see my friends that were filming us, you know, have so much fun capturing it, and then they'd go in and edit the pieces, and there was definitely subconsciously something in my head where I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And so I think once I was able to translate that same idea to music and be behind the camera, it all started happening. But I was obsessed with, you know, rap music and these different Bay Area rappers, and I wanted to be able to, you know, capture them like the superheroes I saw them in my head.
I mean, there's this, I don't know, there was a long time ago, Springsteen was kind of asked why he doesn't do any music videos, what was hard for him, and he was saying like, I'm telling such stories, right? And it's so hard for him to find visuals for that, which makes sense because he's the artist writing it and putting it into music. How is the connection for you between the music, the images that you see in your mind or that people have when they listen to the music, and what you put onto that? Because you definitely can see it that you're adding something to it, so it becomes strong. Huh? I was thinking how you balance those two levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it all came down to the passion of the music and then being able to, do these songs justice and bring them alive on screen in the way that I saw them. And once I saw that it actually worked and that people were receptive towards that idea of me creating these things, I just became obsessed with it, and that was...
Which totally makes sense, coming from in front of the camera, understanding the energy that goes on there, and then going behind it, and still having the connection with the artist, right? Because you can really feel that. You're not trying to put an image on something. You're really driving it from inside out there.
Definitely, and I think a lot of that is really making sure that I have that connection with the artist. And so, every single time I approach a new music video, I'll get on the phone or meet up in person with, whatever artist I'm working with, and talk about, what was on their mind when they're making the song. What does it mean? What does this song mean to you? Not just the lyrics. What does it mean to you? What place are you in? And just try and gather some paint so that I can paint the full picture in my own visual language. Sometimes I won't get that. Sometimes I'll take a song and I'll just literally just feel it and see where it takes me. And that's the beautiful thing about this art form, is there's so many different ways to create within it.
It's an amazing way to put it, that you're gathering paint. Nice t-shirt.
Right?
Totally. Okay, let's go jump and watch into the next one, maybe. That's extremely interesting. First time you listen to a song that you're doing it, is it something you play loud? Or do you turn down the sound, play it quiet? How do you listen to the song the first time?
That's a good question. I mean, I think every single time I listen to a song, it's a completely different environment. Just totally depends where I'm at. Specifically, I remember this one. I was in the Bay Area visiting my family, and Ashley called me and was like, have this song. She hadn't released anything in a little while. This was actually a breakup song, and it was something she wanted to do like right away. So that night I pretty much wrote this concept about this broken relationship and a pretty serious breakup. And I think it was like 3 or 4 days later we're shooting this. So I shot it right down the street from my house in Silver Lake, and we put it together, and it was a feeling, and really incredible experience working with her on this one.
Yeah, you feel it all the way through. A quote came to me, I don't know if you've heard it from John Lee Hooker. He was saying, what use is a fast rhythm without a slow beat? Like there's something, when you take the images and the way to add it, it's like being on a break, but it's releasing some other kind of speed that's going on there. Is that editing process, or is that something, because it sounds easy, like I just film a little bit of breakup and we edit it together, but it's far beyond that.
Yeah. I always have a pace in my head, a rhythm in my head, as far as the way that I'm going to approach shooting something, and this one was really going off the emotional rhythm of the song and the performance. It was rarely, especially during most of the narrative sequences between them, we wouldn't really play the song. It was just purely going off of their physical and emotional acting, and I think that's what makes it feel like a very unique piece, and I think really helped when this song released. Then the video, it just all blew up for her. So it was a really big moment, big single.
Yeah, I totally believe that. So you're starting out shooting your own videos, right? And you've got scenes like that where you see like the pace and the rhythm of the actors is so important. How do you operate yourself, or do you have a DP and you trust their gut level, or how does that work?
Oh, this is Elias Telbo shot this, and he pretty much shot the whole thing handheld, and It was an incredible experience to, it's whenever we shoot something like this, it's a very intimate experience. Pretty much just me, Elias, the artist, and we're in there just creating, talking, and just super in the zone. And Elias's eye on this was just perfect, and I love the intimacy he brought to it, and I think he just read the emotion really well with her performance.
Yeah. There's black and white in there, and you kind of counterpose that with the color stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something you did afterwards, or was that kind of sketched out?
No, it was intentional. It was the idea to be able to kind of separate this like narration of a performance within the whole sequence of all of the other things that are happening directly in your face between them and the relationship.
I always feel that there's, when it comes down to rhythm, that light and how contrast plays, it changes that a lot too. Is that something that's within your work when you think about lighting and you think about how the mood is of something? Is that something you communicate or something?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think as far as like contrast and lighting and where we want to go with it, it's always going to be a conversation and a lot of just research and conversations with me and whichever DP that I'm working with, and that way we're shooting specifically for that.
Do you feel like where the relationship is with the actor, actress, plus when you come into a lit set, it's just a different kind of a feeling and a tone. Is there something that sometimes you felt you needed to change just because everybody's in that zone and space? What lighting does for that? Because that's just lighting one shot on the next.
Totally. I mean, this is a great example of this. This is one of those pieces where you're working so fast, it's almost like documentary style. I think we shot this in 10 hours. Like, we were literally in a couple block radius down the street from my house, and so it was like we were lighting as we were going. There wasn't really a pre-light or anything like that, so we're really, again, you're feeling it out as you're going, and the tweaks are all happening, at split-second decisions.
Is that something you put? I mean, obviously, that would only work like this. Anything when you say, "Oh, we'll do a pre-light, we'll get it all conceptualized," it loses this energy that you have going there.
And that's definitely what this was all about. It's about creating a specific energy and creating momentum and being able to ride off that. So we'd basically, light a space and be able to work within that space without having to, relight or anything like that. It was just going in there and creating that rawness.
Do you have videos or films where you especially go against that rhythm of where you say you're creating a space, you're lighting within it, or sometimes you got to intentionally break this, right? I'm always just thinking because when it comes down to the technical part of all this industry, I often have the feeling sometimes it's in the way of the creativity, and you have to kind of push it back to let space, talent and director to move in.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, definitely the way that I like to work and the DPs that I work with, that's something that's always the first conversation that I'll have. I'll be like, look, I like to work really fast, and I'm not into like stopping and relighting things, and I want to be able to light a space and then work within that space so that we can keep the energy up and the momentum up of the artist and go performance first. And it's something that I just kind of like learned early on as far as a workflow that I like. I don't like to lose the flow. I like everybody to be in the zone and be able to, chase that same vision together.
I mean, how is that? I mean, because obviously you're in a leading position, right? How do you communicate that vision down? That you get onto a set and you have the feeling everybody's going to be in the same flow?
I mean, it all starts from those beginning conversations. Like, I keep a really tight team around me with all of my keys, and everybody has known that it's basically, I like to lead with positivity and optimism and have really great conversations before we get on set, and and talk about the vision and have everybody throw out different ideas, and its best idea wins, you know, and my job is to be that that ultimate communicator in every sense of the word, and be able to take that and translate it to set so that we are executing at a high level at a fast pace, because there's always going to be that timer in the back of our heads and that's real right in front of our faces, that we're up against while we're trying to get that creativity.
Two questions, but that I don't forget them. One is, so when you come with the talent onto set, do you do like the full, how long do you let it run, you know? Is it like 4 short pieces, or is it like you go through the full performance?
Oh, when I'm like recording like somebody singing back to a song? Yeah. Oh, I'll usually break it up. Yeah, I like to, I always have it kind of pre-planned out where it's like, you know, 30 seconds at a time, so that I can kind of have that structure throughout, and we're not sitting there shooting 3 minutes of a performance that we're not going to use.
Yeah, and then keep the energy there as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
To wear it out. So there was one really interesting thing that we talked about last time we met, is because when you talk like leading with optimism, that's a language that does not exist in the film industry. Not meaning there's not optimism,
Yeah.
but in terms of it's a very technical way to approach how to lead people. And maybe you want to share the background of your parents, because I thought it was super fascinating.
Yeah, so both my parents run a business where they basically teach team building for a living, and they work with different CEOs of different companies and coach them through leadership. And they also take those teams and they coach them through teamwork and through different activities, and so through my whole life I've always been overhearing these conversations and just listening to those conversations, and I wasn't really a part of them until there was a reason. And once I kind of fell into being a director and started to utilize some of those skills, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Subconsciously, I've been taking all this in and using it to run these massive teams on set. And it's been a really wonderful journey, because those are probably some of my favorite conversations that I have with my parents, is talking to them about running my team on set from a creative standpoint, but also running my company from a business standpoint, and being able to combine all of those things together.
I have such a feeling that that information doesn't really exist in the film industry. Would you mind sharing what leading with optimism means?
I mean, leading by optimism and leading by positivity, and you know, the worst feeling as a creative is being scared to propose an idea, and so I want to uplift the people around me to bring great ideas to the table. I want to surround myself with everybody in their different technical fields that are 10 million times better at me at that thing, to be like, hey, this is a great idea. And you do that by through positivity and making people feel comfortable, and that's really that's always been my thing, is being able to create that community of people and being able to create that team to where people feel that comfortability and are just on board for the vision and the overall journey that we're going on.
Yeah, thanks. That's, I think, it's an important thing to put out there.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I mean, I think that I got into the industry at an interesting time. I got into the industry when you know, YouTube was kind of just starting, and so the videos that I was putting online, it was like I got in when like the lottery ticket was low, and I was able to take that and build my way up from the ground up and compile an incredible group of artists and put them on my team and start to build with everybody around me. And every single time I'd get a new video, I'd be bringing on new people, and it went from a one-person team, which was me for several years in the Bay Area of shooting, to a 2-3 people, and then to now it's, you know, hundreds of people on set. And that's my favorite part. I love the art of collaboration.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because we've been looking at 2 short pieces, maybe let's look at the trailer, of the film that's running?
Sure.
So we get to talk a little bit what happens over a narrative on a longer scale.
Great.
Very cool. So how is it from going from YouTube on a cell phone to IMAX?
I mean, definitely the experience of even just shooting on the 65 was incredible, and understanding as I'm shooting that, you know, some of these close-ups are going to be her face, you know, 100 feet tall. It was definitely an incredible experience. Understanding that it's a much larger format, it's going to be seen on a much bigger screen. It's a crazy experience.
I mean, because there is a difference, right? If you're watching it on the phone or if you're watching it on the big screen.
You can see every detail, everything.
What's the biggest difference for you when prepping something like that in terms of, you know, understanding what format are you shooting for at the end of the day?
Well, I think on this project it was more like a story first for me. I mean, you know, making sure that this 50-minute film from start to finish was gonna, I really wanted to make sure that people could feel it all the way through and understand the storyline with no dialogue. And to be able to do that, I mean, look, the whole process of making this film was just wild. We shot it in the middle of the pandemic. Halsey was 5 months pregnant while we shot it. We shot it in Prague, in these castles from the 1100s. It was a really wild thing to accomplish at that moment in time, and just in general, honestly.
How long did you shoot?
We shot for 14 days.
15 minutes.
Yes. 2 weeks prep, and I think the thing that I learned most on this process was, look, every single music video I have a day or two to shoot it, you know, a couple weeks to prep, sometimes a couple days, but with this, I'm thinking about how am I going to approach something for 14 days of shooting. So my prep work going into that was like understanding how to schedule for that amount of time. And after my 2 weeks of prep, I got to that last day and I was like, all right, I think I'm ready for this next 2 weeks. I feel like I see it all the way through. And I learned quickly after a couple days on set with this new team in Prague and everything that I was going to have to adapt my shooting style. So every single morning I would wake up a couple hours before set and just go through my entire shot list again and come up with A, B, and C plans. Because some shots that I had 2 hours blocked out to shoot, I realized I could only get accomplished in 15 minutes. So I had to be prepared beyond prepared. And it was just a different level of prep work that I had never experienced before.
Meaning you had less time to shoot because the whole setup took longer than it was anticipated?
It was a little mix of everything, actually. But I think the first thing is, yes, our locations are kind of all over the place, all the logistics that went into it. But also it was freezing cold in some of these castles. I'm dealing with artists that's 5 months pregnant. It's like it's a health risk to be in some of these spaces or in some of these scenes for longer than 10-15 minutes. So it was just about having to be so precise and combine a lot of my blocking into a different style of shooting that I'm used to, and I think that it actually really paid off at the end of the day, to just in every sense of it.
So you brought your DP with you?
Yes, I brought my DP Elias Talbot and my producer Jamie Ranta, and it was just us three that went out there and worked with an incredible team in Prague, Still King Productions, and they were just incredible to work with.
Awesome. I mean, it really pays off. You see it in what's going on there. I'm really looking forward to when it comes to normal HBO. Otherwise, it's an HBO Max right now, right?
Yes. I think it comes out internationally shortly after.
Yeah.
Colin, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.